I've been making on average about $713 per week from selling options, but there is more. In this video, I'm going to show you a live demo of how I sell options weekly and also exactly how much money I made since starting to do so. This has been hands down the most passive way I made money ever in my life. To recap, in the previous video I made about options, I've given you an explanation for how options work. I told you about my strategy, and I talked about why I use Charles Schwab as my broker and avoid other popular brokers like Robinhood. In this video, I'm going to show you a live demo of me selling options as I do on a weekly basis and show you how much money I made so far in total, including a select few trades and how much money I made from each of them. If you haven't seen it yet, check out the previous video I made about options where I show you how to open an account with Charles Schwab, preview options, and discuss the strategy I use, so everything here will make sense. As I'm going to show you, usually on Mondays I will sell calls and puts options that expire on the Friday of the same week, selling calls options for stocks that I was assigned to from a previous puts option and at minimum for the strike price of that put option. Importantly, I sell puts options only for stocks that I'm comfortable holding when their price drops, so that when it does happen, I will just wait until it bounces back so I could start selling calls options. As mentioned before, I use Charles Schwab since it's reliable, has exceptional customer service, and is fully featured. So on every Monday, I'll have an idea of which option I want to sell, and I would go to option chains to see the different options available for a given stock. This week I'm going with Palantir, which I've been selling their options for a while now. I'm not going to dive deeply into why I believe in Palantir's future, but in a sentence, I can say that, in my opinion, the geopolitical situation in the next 3 to 5 years looks pretty shaky and with possible conflicts. Such outcome plays into Palantir's hands since they're selling software for militaries and governments around the world that is useful when things become unstable. Back to selling options, I choose the expiration date to be the Friday of this week and a strike price to be the closest to the current market price, which is $14 as of now. I choose the quantity and I usually go for more than 5, but I'm thinking of diversifying a bit into other companies I'm bullish on as well, so 5 is good for now. As you can see, I will be making about $411 from selling these options, and I need to have at least $7,000 in funds to be able to buy the options at the strike price if I get assigned, which I do have enough cash in my account to cover that. I place the order and then either see them right away on my accounts page if the order was filled or wait until that happens. It is actually rare that it's not filled immediately when trading during market times, and when it happens, it's usually because I wait too long on the options change page such that the price of the stock changes and I sell it for an out-of-date price, so it does not end up being bought right away. But as you can see, the order was filled a couple of minutes later and I have them here. The reason it shows a negative number is because I sold options, so I'm obliged to a contract that someone holds. I can buy the exact option with the same expiration date and strike price, which will negate the one that I sold and will bring me back to the same state as before I sold the option, with a net positive if I bought it for a lower price. This is also called rolling your option, which is something that I personally have never done. This is what I do every Monday, which generates money on a weekly recurring basis in a passive way if I ever seen one. So now let me show you how much money I made selling options this way since getting started, and a few examples of trades that I've made. I make a note of every option I sell each week and organize it all in a table in Notion. In the first 2 months, I just got started with selling options for the first time and made about $148 per week in the first month and $72 per week in the second month. I allowed myself to trade with increasing volume after getting familiar with the trading workflow on Charles Schwab and taking the time to understand which few 3 to 5 companies I would want for them to succeed and also think that they will be so in the future, or for the very least companies that won't be really struggling, since I mentioned before in the first part that selling options through the wheel strategy can be highly profitable when the market goes sideways and not necessarily up. In total, I made over $965 through 74 trades over roughly 28 weeks, which means I made about $713 on average per week. And that number is the profit before short-term capital gains tax, which will probably take a good 30 to 35% chunk of it. It's important to note that what I'm doing is considered high reward because investing in an S&P 500 index ETF will not yield nearly the same returns, but also high risk because I'm essentially betting on 3 to 5 companies, which I'm okay with now, especially after stomaching a few downturns. From that perspective, I think that the most important thing to not be too stressed when your portfolio is not doing well is your knowledge of and belief in those few companies for the long term. My personal 4 cents on that is to have a thorough understanding of the industry of the company and its ability to innovate based on its culture and people, and hypothesize on what can cause the stock to crash in the near term and how likely that can be. And the reason I mentioned belief is because personally, I found it to be helpful to also choose a company which I'm actually rooting for their success. With that said, tolerance levels change, including mine, and that's only natural since life's circumstances change. So to give you a clear idea for the very simple option selling strategy that I use, here are a few examples of trades that I've done in the past. This is the very first option I ever sold. I sold one option for $147, which felt pretty sweet. I ended up getting assigned, so I sold a few calls options, which yielded me with $188 in profit, including the last option that got assigned, and exited my Roblox position, selling the 100 shares at additional $100 profit, bringing the total profit to $435. $147 from selling the puts option, $188 selling the calls options, and $100 from selling the shares at a $1 profit per share after getting assigned in the last calls option. All of that for an initial $3,500 investment. This was my first experience with the wheel strategy for trading options, but the simple version without rolling options. Now for the worst trade I ever made. I sold this Bank of America puts a while back, got assigned, and the stock pretty much tanked afterwards, so I'll be keeping tight until it bounces back so I could sell calls options at the $37 strike price. On the other hand, this is among the best and largest trades I ever made. It did not get assigned and I cashed in $2,220 profit by selling 62 of these put options for Palantir. So hopefully these real trades give you an idea for what selling options looks like, what's the ballpark for profit, and what may happen when things go south. If you decide to get into options, please remember to do your own due diligence and consider your risk tolerance when doing so. I'm not a certified financial advisor, nor have I been trading options for decades now to tell you that I've seen it all, and quite to the contrary, I'm just a beginner. With that said, one thing that I can tell you with confidence is that if you do start small. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you are trading options, please comment down below how you are doing that, and I'll see you next time. Bye.